You're listening to the Doctor Is In podcast, brought to you by MartinClinic.com. During the episode, the doctors share a lot of information. As awesome as the info may be, it is not intended to diagnose, cure, treat, or prevent any disease. It's strictly for informational purposes.
Well, good morning, everyone. We're going to talk about something came up in the news there in the last week. That, did it shock me? I think it did a little bit. And that was, do you know what the number one selling medication in 2018 was? It is a drug called Humira, okay? Humira, Humira. And Humira is number one, $20 billion of sales in 2018. And guys, just understand where I'm coming from. I'm not against the medication, okay? I want to make a point about this. Humira is used for autoimmune, okay? So what is autoimmune? I'll give you some examples of it. It's when your immune system goes crazy. It sees everything coming in as a foreign invader. It turns on itself. It goes into a real response. Really a response for infection when there's no infection at all. And then the body turns on itself. And that can take, MS is an autoimmune disease. And so is Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, ankylosing spondylitis, and psoriasis. Either the plaque psoriasis or, the skin psoriasis. These are terrible autoimmune disorders. Rheumatoid arthritis, of course, okay? So all of these create a huge inflammatory response. The body over-responds, and you can, obviously very, very ill. But imagine now, today, here we are at the end of 2019, and in the year 2018, the number one selling medication was for autoimmune. And by the way, 12 that hit the top 12. Okay, so I've talked about this in the past, but the number one medication of all time is not Humira. The number one medication of all time, hundreds and billions of dollars of sales, is statin drugs, Lipitor to be specific. Although in the same family, Crestor, Zocor, all these statin drugs are number one overall, and they are the Wayne Gretzky of drugs, was the statin drugs, because they were the number one selling medication of all time. But now, you know what's taking over is autoimmune drugs. So out of the top 12 in 2018, 6 of them were autoimmune drugs like Humira, and the other 6 were chemotherapy drugs. They were in the top 12. Top 12 medications. You wouldn't even know these names. I mean, unless you have autoimmune, would you even know what Humira is, other than if you watch American television, you'll see it on TV a fair amount. I think, who's that golfer there? Left-handed golfer. I'm just thinking he did commercials for that. Anyway, I'll think about it. I think about his name. For Humira, because apparently he had, I don't know if he had psoriatic arthritis or whatever. But anyway, guys, here's my point, okay? Here's what I want to talk about in terms of autoimmune, okay? So where does autoimmune come from, okay? Now, if you Google it, you'll read that we're not sure, okay? We're not sure where autoimmune comes from. All I'm going to tell you, folks, is that we see so much more autoimmune today than we ever used to. I mean, it is like an epidemic. Obviously, if Humira is the number one selling medication in 2018, like it shocks me. You would think that, an antibiotic, name an antibiotic, would be the number one selling medication, but it's not. statin drugs are no longer. I think people are getting smart to the statin drug thing. But thirdly, why so much autoimmune? Why so much? Here's the other thing that I wanted to tell you. 1 out of 5 people in North America have autoimmune right now. 1 out of 5. It's absolutely incredible. Think about the epidemic that is, guys. 1 out of 5 North Americans have autoimmune disease. Okay, now, you know me. You know the Martin Clinic. You know how we think. Let's reverse engineer autoimmune. Where does it come from? Where does it come from? The gut. The gut. The gut. Remember what Hippocrates said? You know, the vast majority of disease, he said this a couple of thousand years ago, the vast majority of disease start in the gut. And guys, look, when I say gut, you might not even have any digestive issues that you even know about it. You might not have IBS. You might not have any symptoms, but you have autoimmune. I'm telling you, it starts in the gut. Yes, it does. It starts with a condition called leaky gut. It starts with a condition called dysbiosis. It starts because the gut lining isn't tight enough. We call that leaky gut. The endothelial lining of your gut is compromised due to, I'll give you many factors. One of them, it starts for most people with rheumatoid or psoriatic arthritis or eczema or ulcerative colitis or Crohn's. One of the biggest factors in that is dysbiosis and leaky gut. Where does it come from? One of the number one things is the overuse of antibiotics. Look, antibiotics can save your life. I get it. But they create havoc in the gut because they kill the good bacteria. If you step on a scale, minus 3 pounds. You got 3 pounds of bacteria. Take it off. People always like that when I tell them that. Minus 3. Did you lose any weight? Take off 3 pounds because it's bacteria. You know, it's like your clothes. Your bacteria weigh about the same amount of clothes. So when you get on the scale, you know, minus 2 pounds for your clothes and minus 3 pounds for your bacteria. But guys, if your bacteria is not healthy, if you have leaky gut, if you've taken an antibiotic without replacing the good bacteria, you can get a chronic, what we call dysbiosis. And once you have more bad guys than good guys, it's called you lose. And now, because that the microbiome has been changed and the endothelial wall has been changed, you get yeast or fungus or candida. Yeast. It gets into your bloodstream. It can go to your joints. It can go to your brain, MS. It can go on your skin, psoriasis. It can go into your bones and ankylosing spondylitis and into your cartilage of your disc. It's a yeast infection. Now your body is overreacting to that. That's where you get the pain. That's where you get the inflammation. And that's why people get on the drug Humira, to give them relief. I mean, I don't want to talk about all the side effects of Humira. The problem is when you take an immunosuppressant, guess what happens? You suppress your immune system. Now, it even says on the commercial in the United States, be careful for tuberculosis. Be careful for certain type of cancers. On this medication, the list, when they tell you, I don't know if you've ever seen those commercials in the United States, but when they tell you, you know, Ask your doctor if this drug is good for you. Then after that, they got it takes them about 10 minutes to read the side effects of it. Okay? Because they are like, yeah, it may relieve pain and inflammation, but you got to be very careful. Anyway, I don't want to necessarily talk about the drug. I want to talk about the fact that we see so much autoimmune disease today. Why is it? Not that rheumatoid arthritis wasn't always around, but why is it going in 1 out of 5 people in North America have autoimmune disease today? It's because of the greatest discovery of the 20th century has become the curse of the 21st. Antibiotics on the top of the list. I'm sure chemicals have something to do with destroying your microbiome and your good bacteria. And our diets are full of sugar and full of these seed oils. Way too much omega-6 compared to omega-3. That ratio affects the microbiome in the gut. And you guys know that I talk about that all the time. So what am I saying? Well, listen, we live in a different world than we used to live in. And these wonderful things that we have around us, including antibiotics to save our life, well, we paid a price for that. And now we have an epidemic of autoimmune disease. Now we reversed engineered it and we looked at these things. What can we do? Well, first of all, how do you treat autoimmune, Dr. Martin? What do I do at the Martin Clinic? Well, first of all, it has to be radical. It has to be a radical change. If you want results, you need to do a complete radical change of your gut with probiotics. I recommend digestive enzymes every meal, because you want to lower all markers of inflammation. And so in terms of food, supplements, I'll get to a little bit, I'll tell you a little bit more, but let me just say, number one, you got to change your diet big time. You got to kill the yeast, and one way to kill yeast is not to feed the beast. Don't feed the bears. Don't feed the bears. Because if you are sugar is a huge culprit. And read your labels. Any crappy sugar, and it will feed yeast. So you don't feed the beast. Don't feed the beast. And an anti-inflammatory diet is a diet that takes away your carbohydrates and lowers your insulin. And again, I always talk the same way. I know you guys must get tired of me saying it. But lower your carbs. If you lower your sugars and you lower your carbs, read your labels. Quit eating cereal. Quit eating bread. Quit eating noodles. Quit eating pasta. Quit eating rice. Quit eating yogurt. Quit drinking wine. You got to stop all that if you have autoimmune. Don't drink milk. You can't have any of that. Limit your diet, bring it in. I'm always telling my patients, rope in your diet, rope it in, bring it in, and live on if you have autoimmune disease, live in here. If you've got Crohn's, if you've got ulcerative colitis, if you got rheumatoid arthritis, if you have ankylosing spondylitis, these are autoimmune. Fix the gut, change your diet. Eliminate and in a lot of ways, be your own doctor. Okay, no gluten. I'm usually saying gluten smootin', but it's because I don't care so much about gluten, because if you cut your carbs down, you'll cut your gluten down. Get back to nature. Live in the outer, in the produce department of your grocery store. Pretend you live on a farm. And you lived 100 years ago with no grocery stores. What would you eat? You wouldn't be living on bread. You wouldn't be living on noodles. You wouldn't be living on, I'm not saying you never eat any bread or whatever, but you wouldn't be, you'd be eating eggs, meat, and cheese and vegetables in season and canned or pickled stuff, right? With fermented foods. You'd be doing all that. Anyway. limit the diet, and here's a couple of supplements. Obviously, you need probiotics because if it starts in the gut, then you need to fix the gut. What fixes the gut? Probiotic. The diet helps, and probiotics, right? That's where I was saying digestive enzymes. Don't leave home without them. Call them American Express. Like, you should be taking digestive enzymes. If someone has that much inflammation, you want help in digesting that food down into nothing, so that once it hits your small intestine, it's already been sort of pre-digested. Keep your acidity in your stomach very high. And, I love omega-3. Get your omega-3 levels up, especially the high DHA oil. I'd be taking so much DHA oil. If I had an autoimmune disease, I'd slide out of rooms. I'm taking so much oil. I'd be slippery. You'd touch me and I'd be leaking oil. Okay? But good oil, right? Like DHA. DHA is, and EPA, those are the best omega-3s. Okay? Really good. And if you wanted to have some seeds, one of the best seeds, very anti-inflammatory, is flax seeds. So, and then curcumin. I love curcumin. Curcumin is so good for you, right? Turmeric, okay? Turmeric. Now, curcumin is the extract of turmeric, and it's the one that's the most absorbed, okay? That's the problem with turmeric. In order for it to be an anti-inflammatory, you have to use a lot of it, and that's why I like curcumin, because curcumin is a very, it's much more absorbable, okay? That's why that, okay? So the other thing is, what's very anti-inflammatory? The sun. The sun is very, very anti-inflammatory. That's why it is so good for you. Vitamin D, you know me with my vitamins. I love vitamin D, right? I love vitamin D. But vitamin D is anti-inflammatory, and most people with autoimmune, when I do patients with autoimmune, we find out that their vitamin D levels are extremely low. Yeah. So share this with your friends too. Anybody that you know that has autoimmune, you must know somebody, because it's 1 out of 5. It's like an epidemic. So listen, okay? I hope you enjoyed our little teaching this morning on autoimmune. What do? Get that inflammation down. Fix the gut, fix the gut, fix the gut, because it starts in the gut. Okay? We'll talk to you guys later. Love you.
You've reached the end of another Dr. is In podcast with your hosts, Dr. Martin Jr. and Sr. Be sure to catch our next episode, and thanks for listening.